the next thing we're going to play with is layer opacity. Okay, so what this means is we can play with the thickness of the layer. So I'm just going to make some adjustments here. Here you go. Oh, let's make that nice and big. There we go. Right. So what this means is that we can play with the thinness or the transparency of the layer, so we can make it more see-through. So what I'm going to do here with the yellow pizza slice, which is on the top, so I've selected it. Look, we can move it around, so it means I've selected it. Is if you look up here, just above it, there's something that says opacity. Now 100% opacity means that you can't see through it at all. All right, so if I click on this little down arrow, there's a slider, and as I reduce this, you'll see that the pizza slice slowly disappears. All right, or slowly reveals the objects behind it. All right, so we can make that slightly see-through, and I'm going to do the same with the blue flower. So I'm going to click on the blue flower, and I'm going to reduce the opacity of that. All right, so you can see the bus through there. So have a play with that. So at this point, what we should be doing really is having a bit of a play, moving stuff around, playing with the size of your objects, okay, using that transform tool, playing with the rotation of them. Yeah, and now into the mix we can add opacity. All right, so again, once you've done that, once you're happy, then you're going to go to file, export as, and then export and name, just as we have done before. So I'm just going to quickly play with this. I think I'm going to bring that, I'm going to bring the opacity of the flower right down, and I'm going to bring, there you go, play with the layer order as well. Transform it. Okay, and then of course export as. That's going to be Vasily 1 05. I'm going to put that on my desktop and then click save. Okay, so this is where things start to get really creative and really exciting. All right, so what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to make the flower, going to put it back to its original state. It's going to make it a bit smaller. Okay, like so. So what we're going to do now is we're going to duplicate our layers, our objects. All right, and we do this in a couple of different ways. One thing you'll find with Photoshop is there's never ever one way of achieving something. There's always 2 or 3 ways of doing it. All right, and it depends on the way you get to learn and you prefer. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the simplest way of doing this. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to make 2 flowers out of 1. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that's selected, and then we're going to go to its layer here where it says blue flower. I'm going to right click, but you've got to be careful not to right click on this bit or the name. It just needs to be where it's blank here. So right click and then up near the top, up near the top should be duplicate. There you go, duplicate layer. and click OK. Okay, now you'll see that 2 layers have appeared now, so you've not just got one blue flower, you've got a blue flower copy. So now if we click on that one, it'll just select the top most layer, and we've now got 2 flowers. And then this layer, of course, I can transform it however I like. Okay, now the nice thing about this is you can duplicate these things as much as you like. Okay, there we go, and then we can click on this one and duplicate. Pull that down here somewhere. Let's make it a bit smaller. Whoops. Okay, and duplicate. Put this layer right behind everything else. Okay, and I'm going to decrease its opacity. Okay, whoops. Okay, you'll notice that I've duplicated this in a slightly different way. That's okay. You could recreate a pizza if you wanted out of all of these slices, if you feel inclined. Just by duplicating and rotating. Okay, so look, we've got half a pizza there. Duplicate. When I'm transforming at the moment, I'm just hitting a quick key, which is actually Command T if you want the quick key for this, or which is essentially the same as going to edit and free transform. Can you see it says Control T, Command T? Okay, and we can rotate it and we can put it into position. Hit enter. All right, so we can kind of recreate our pizza if we wanted. Okay, and at that step, again, have a bit of a play, come up with something creative, take a couple of minutes over it, and then you're going to go to File, Export, Export As, and then this will be 06, won't it? Okay, Vasily 1, 06, let's put it on desktop. There we have it. Now, one thing we can do is, if we're not happy with the way where a layer is, we can actually turn it off. So can you see these eyes on the layers panel? So look, if you find the red bus, you can actually click an eye, turn the bus off. All right, so if you don't like a particular layer, so for me it's going to be this background image, if you click the layer, that eye, you can turn that off. All right, it's still there, you're not going to delete it, it's still there, but it's good, it's useful to know that you can turn it on, you can see if it looks better with or without. But for this, I'm going to turn it off. All right, and what we're going to do this time is we're going to change the color of our background. Okay, so at the moment the background is grey. Now you can't select the background by just clicking on it, all right, like you can the other layers. Okay, you have to actually click the background in the layers palette. All right, so if we click that, okay, and to fill that background we're going to use the paint bucket tool. Now on the tools panel on the left, you'll see that there's some little tiny arrows against some of the tools. This means there's actually other tools buried underneath it. All right, so it kind of gives you a selection of the ones it thinks you're going to want, but you'll see that what we actually want is the paint bucket tool. It's the fill tool, but you can't see a paint bucket there. Right, and that's because it's hidden under the gradient tool. Right, and this is the gradient tool here. All right, just underneath the eraser. So you can always have a play with that if you wanted. All right, I'm going to click and hold on that. All right, and then you can see gradient tool and paint bucket tool. So I'm going to select the paint bucket tool. Okay, and I'm going to come over here to the swatches. Okay, now depending on which version of Photoshop you've got, you'll either see a nice big grid of colours here, or you'll see a lot of little subfolders, and it says something like warm colours, cool colours, light colours, or saturated colours. All right, but essentially all of these, but they've just been kind of separated into separate folders. Now what you can do is you can choose a colour for your background, and you'll see when you click on a colour, so I'm going to choose this light red, you'll see on the very left hand side at the bottom of the tools palette a colour appears in that top box. All right, now that's the colour that you're going to use to fill the background. So I'm going to click in the background. All right, and it's turned it that colour. All right, so what I want you to do is find a colour that you feel kind of pulls this image together. All right, so it could be a cool colour or a warm colour, but you make that decision. You try and find a colour that works well with all of the colours. All right, and again, and finally, for the final time on this particular task, we're going to go to export, export as, and then export all, and this is Vasily 107. Okay, and then we're going to save it. Did I save it on desktop? I'm sure I'll find out. Okay, so it might be that we want to continue working on this in the future. All right, but it's always good to hang on to stuff. So we're going to need to save this. Now, what we could do is go just to File and Save. All right, so if we go to File and Save, that will save this file back to the original file that's in your Downloads folder. However, it may be that you want to actually save it somewhere specific. If that's the case, then you'll go to File and Save As. Okay, and then you can choose Desktop. And I've actually created a folder here called Vasily. I'm going to double click on that, and I'm just going to leave it as Vasily 1, and I'm going to save it in there. And this means it will save it, but it will also save it with all of your layers, including the ones that have been turned off. Yeah, and then you'll be able to continue working on it in the future if you wish. Okay, just as a final thing, just to finish up, I'm going to quickly show you all of the images that we've created from this. So when we've exported, I've exported them all to the same file, and you can see, look, I've just put Vasily 1 in the folder, and hopefully you should see a really nice progression through your images from the very first one in this really nice simple kind of layout through to ever more complex creative outcomes. And just don't forget that these creative outcomes are your creative outcomes, and I'd love to see, you know, how you manage to really create some interesting stuff with this, you know, and think beyond the objects that you're seeing in these images. So think beyond the bus, the flower, and the pizza slice. Think more of it in terms of a rectangle, a triangle, and a circle, and perhaps using those forms you can create, you know, a landscape, a portrait of someone or something. All right, so just try and see how far you can really push this. Thank you very much, and the next video will be a continuation of this, where we'll start to look at some of the other features within Photoshop, all right, and also about using your own content, whether that be a photograph or something that you have drawn yourself. So thank you very much.